Yo, what is going on, YouTube? It's me, J-Ho, and this is my review for Pacific Rim Uprising. I just got back from a Thursday screening at 9:45. It is now 1 in the morning, Friday, March 23rd. And this was a super big disappointment. In a nutshell, the quality of this movie is just another Transformers. But the only difference is there was, big expectations for this one because the first one was just so good, right? It's not like a Transformers movie where you expect it to be shitty. You hear, if you get an announcement that, Michael Bay's making Transformers 6, you're like, okay, yeah, you know what you're in for. But Pacific Rim, you expect some quality, some character development, at least some lore into the world of kaijus, and yeah, we didn't get that. It was pretty much just all eye candy and annoying teenagers. So yeah, I really don't know what to say. I don't know where to start. Excuse me. This movie was directed by a new guy. It wasn't Guillermo del Toro. He was the executive producer, but he didn't direct. This new guy, he was only known for making TV shows and whatnot, some small time stuff, and it shows right off the bat in the beginning of the movie. The directing style, the overall cinematography, just the way the movie was presented. It was like watching an episode of whatever on Netflix. Yeah, and then the pace of the movie just picks up after that, and it kind of goes into movie mode, but then you're expecting some story, how are the kaiju coming back, how are the characters, what are their relationships to the characters of the previous movie, who are these new characters. All I can say is 9 out of 10 of the characters, I could give 2 shits about them, or I couldn't give 2 shits about them. That's how insignificant and small they were. I mean, like, the characters that were in this movie, they could have been played by anyone. You didn't need John Boyega. You didn't need Scott Eastwood. You could have just picked, random bums off the street, and they could have made this movie. The only breath of fresh air was Charlie Day as Newton, and that other European guy that came back as the other scientist. I don't know what his name is. Let me check here. Bern Gorman as Dr. Herman Gottlieb. Yeah. And then the rest, I'm just on IMDb right now. The rest are just nobodies. There was, brief references to the previous movie with Idris Elba's character, the previous main characters that were in the, first movie. And I was expecting, like I said, more lore and going deeper into the kaiju world and kind of finding out what they are, where they came from, what their motives are, why they do what it is that they do. There really wasn't any of that. It was just mindless fighting. Although the fighting was, it was epic. It was good. It was a little bit better than the first movie, but that doesn't make up for the lack of everything else, so yeah. So I mean, this movie review, I'm not even gonna bother doing 2 separate reviews, one for non-spoiler and spoilers. I'm just gonna mesh the 2 together, and so I'm gonna put spoiler warning in the titles just so everyone is put on notice, because there really isn't that much to talk about this movie. It's really bone dry, really cookie cutter, and just real lack of substance. Like right off the bat, at least in the first movie, you get a history of what's been happening with the kaiju and what's being done. This movie just cuts, straight to John Boyega, and then you have this snotty little teenager scrounging around for Jaeger parts. Sound familiar? Transformers 5, Force Awakens. Like that bit has been done to death, to the point where we just don't want to see it anymore. And so, snotty, annoying teenage girl, who built her own Jaeger, okay? His name's Scrapper, okay? So it's almost like a complete copycat of Transformers 5. And then you're like, okay, snotty teenager, I get it, whatever. Let's just get on with the movie. And then John Boyega and the girl end up at the academy, at the military base where all the Jaegers are. And what do we get? More teenagers. There's like 10 of them, right? And they're just bickering and fighting amongst themselves, and the acting is just so cringy. Like, I was this close to leaving the theater. This close. Actually, I left the theater once, to take a piss, just because I thought, whatever, I'm probably not going to miss anything. I went out, took a piss, answered some texts, went on Instagram for a bit, then came back, asked my friend what I missed. He said nothing. All right, so that's kind of what you're in for if you want to see this movie. What else can I talk about? Yeah, John Boyega, Scott Eastwood. I just want to say, like, this isn't really related to the movie, but this is the first movie that I've seen Scott Eastwood in, and it is really funny how alike he looks, to his dad, and it's pretty cool. It's like watching a young Clint Eastwood, just taken back from in time and just inserted into a modern day movie. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't really make the movie good. It's just kind of little, like yay, look at that. But yeah, like I said, the characters of John Boyega and Scott Eastwood could have been played by anyone, completely forgettable characters, like no connection to anybody, like in terms of character chemistry, character interaction. The teenagers, like, you don't remember anyone, like any of them, like you couldn't give two shits about any of them. There was a lot of Chinese actors from mainland China, and I get why they did that. They just want to appeal to the Chinese market, the Chinese audience, because I think that tactic really worked in the movie studio's favor when it came to Transformers 4, I believe. Transformers 4, 5, and a couple other movies, because Hollywood realized, like, oh man, we can make $1 billion, if we tap into the Chinese market, because, well, there's like 3 billion of them over there compared to the US, where there's only like 250 million, right? So, what else can I talk about? Like, really forgettable movie. Nothing memorable. Oh my god. Okay. Charlie Day. So the two scientists in the first movie were really fascinating, and those were my two of my favorite characters out of the three. Ron Perlman, Charlie Day, and the other European scientist. And I thought they were really cool. At least they had history. They served as kind of like a storyteller, in the first movie. This movie, they were just kind of shoehorned in there, and they didn't really do anything. So the whole premise of the movie is Charlie Day, Herman. Is his name Herman? Let me check. Yeah, Herman. So Herman is obsessed with kaiju, and he somehow smuggles a kaiju brain back into his apartment in his bedroom, and he hooks himself up via a Demolition Man virtual reality headset and has like virtual sex with his brain every night, to the point where the kaiju has telepathically infected his brain, and he somehow infects all the Jaegers that has been made like out of the assembly line in China. And so like when you see that, you're like, okay, all right, waiting for an explanation, and we don't get it. And all of a sudden, all the Jaegers that are being flown in from China, all of a sudden, like, you got like horns and spikes popping out of their shoulders, like their mouths open, like, like big teeth and like blue goop everywhere. And you're like, oh, okay, all right. And after the fighting's all done, you kind of expect a little explanation. Nope. It just happens, That's pretty much what this movie is. A lot of things just happen with no explanation, right? So yeah, Herman's the bad guy. Okay, there. I just saved you $15. Herman's the bad guy. Gets infected by the kaiju brain. And then Herman is watching. So once all those Jaegers are infected by the kaiju, and they kind of like turn into their Jaeger kaiju hybrid form, they go into the ocean and they fire their lasers down to the ocean, and they try to open up that portal again, the bridge. And so they somehow, the good guys stop, what they're doing. They hack into the computer system and they shut everything down. But obviously, 3 kaijus get through the hole. And so apparently Mount Fuji is where they were heading for all this time, even from the first movie, because Mount Fuji is made of rare mineral rock. And so once the kaiju get a hold of those minerals or materials, it'll set a chain reaction, catastrophic chain reaction, and wipe out all life on Earth. The most, like, the stupidest, most cookie cutter thing, the most lazy writing that you have ever seen. And so the 3 kaiju are just romping and stomping through Tokyo like Godzilla, heading towards Mount Fuji. The Jaegers are fighting them, obviously, and you have Charlie Day, excuse me, standing on the roof of a skyscraper, like 2 blocks away, with a fucking iPad controlling the kaiju. And you're like, what? And at this point you're like, okay, like, just toss everything out the window. Like, let's just get this over with. Like, just get to the end, Like, how does the movie end? And so the Jaegers, put up a good fight, and they kind of have the kaiju, stopped in their tracks. They haven't really advanced towards Mount Fuji, And then all of a sudden, Herman, with a punch of a couple buttons on his, trusty little iPad, summons an entire army of micro microbots, micro Jaegers, that are infected by the kaiju mind meld thing. Okay, these little micro things, and they crawl up and they cover the 3 kaiju and they fuse together. Okay, so in a nutshell, pretty much everything that you've seen from the last trailer, you've pretty much saw the whole movie. Okay, so just out of the blue, microbots are able to fuse kaiju together into this super kaiju, and there's no explanation what these bots are, where they came from, why they were made. Yeah, it's just another what the fuck moment. So you're like, okay, whatever. And so cut to the end. Kaiju gets killed, obviously, by Gypsy, who's the main Jaeger from the first movie. And it just cuts to the end. It just cuts the credits, right? It's like dead kaiju. The 2 pilots are outside, joking around, having a snowball fight on Mount Fuji. Then it cuts to Charlie Day Herman, and he just gets knocked the fuck out by Scott Eastwood. And then credits. And the entire theater, I just turned to my friend, I was like, what the fuck? Like, everyone else was doing that too, And then there was I wouldn't even call it a stinger, because but it cuts to Charlie Day again, strapped to a chair in prison, in a federal prison, and you can hear him, ranting, saying, "This isn't over yet, we'll get you humans, we'll keep coming back." And you can hear the voice of the kaiju brain, that's still infecting his brain. And the voice just sounds so stupid. Like, there's just so many things that are just so cringy in this movie. So don't watch, don't pay $15, $16, $17 for the movie ticket, because it's in 3D, and then save yourself the money for theater food. Complete waste of money. Like, and no Ron Perlman. Probably the biggest sin against this movie. The most interesting character in the entire first movie was the kaiju smuggler, Ron Perlman. No Ron Perlman. And they hinted, that they're going to make a 3rd movie. I don't know if they are, because this movie I don't think is going to do that well. I don't know. Maybe it will because of the Chinese market, but we'll see. But if they do, fuck, they better bring back Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman and fix it. Because this movie, sucked monkey dick. Legit. And I think at the during the credits of the first movie, there was a stinger where Ron Perlman, you see him survive. So me and my friend were thinking, okay, let's stay, for the credits, after credits, to see if there's a after credits scene. Nope, nothing. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this movie. The only good thing was maybe the fight scene. And there's really only one fight scene, and that was the final fight scene with the 3 kaiju. And you see most of it in the trailer already. So yeah. Like, what went wrong? What went wrong? I don't know. You know, who greenlit this to have this director make this movie? You know, why couldn't they get Del Toro? But anyways, I guess I have to give like a final rating for this movie. I would probably give it a 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10, and that's being generous. You know, I would say about a 3.5. 3.5 to 4. Okay, I'll give it the maximum rating, the highest rating that I could possibly give in my most generous mood, on my most generous day. That'll be a 4 out of 10. Right? This movie definitely does not get a pass. The only thing this movie has going for it is, you know, the sound effects, the fighting, you know, the kaiju Jaeger fights. It was kind of epic. Some of the Jaegers are a little bit more nimble, more agile, so they're doing like, you know, spinning heel kicks, and they got more weapons, and, you know, a little bit more eye candy, but that's about it. Everything else you can just flush down the toilet. So yeah, that's it. That's the review. Have you seen this movie? You know, comment down below, leave a comment, tell me what you think. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that notification button, so that you'll get notified every time I have a new video or if I stream. If you didn't like this video, well, that's okay. That's okay. I won't hold it against you, as always. But yeah, thanks for watching. My name is Jeho, and I will see you next time.